Hi, welcome to my video on factored or x-intercepts form of a parabola. It's called a factored, or we can call it the x-intercept form of a parabola. This is the third form we're looking at. The previous forms were Vertex form and the other is standard. So let's look at the factored or x-intercept form of a parabola. Y equals a times x minus s times x minus t. And we have s and t are the x-intercepts. And if a is greater than 0, the parabola opens up. And a is less than 0, the parabola opens down. And a is the vertical stretch is the absolute value of whatever a is. No matter if a is plus or minus, the vertical stretch is always the positive number. So let's look at some examples. We have an equation y equals 2 times x minus 1 x plus 4. Because it's a positive, the parabola is going to open up. The vertical stretch is a 2 because it's the absolute value of 2. And the x-intercepts are the opposite of what's in the brackets. The x-intercepts are 1 and 4. If you put a 1 in the place of x right here, you get a 0. 1 minus 0 is 0. If you put a 1 here, you get a negative 3. But 0 times any number is 0. If you put a negative 4 in this x, you get 0. You put a negative 4 here, you get 3. So 2 times 3 times 0 still gives you 0, because the x-intercepts is when you have y equal to 0 in an ordered pair. So x-intercepts makes the y value 0. B, we have a negative 3, so it's going down. And vertical stretch is the absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. And the x-intercepts is the opposite of x plus 2, negative 2. And the opposite of x minus 6 is 6. Again, negative 2 will give you a 0 right here, or 6 will give you a 0 right here. C, because it's a negative 1 understood, it opens down. And the vertical stretch is 1. And if there's no number in front here, it's understood to be a 1. And the x-intercepts are 3 and a negative 7. Notice again, opposite of what's in the bracket. And practice means work these out on your own by pausing the video and see if your answers are right. Again, it's negative, so it's going to go down. The absolute value of negative a half is a half. And the x-intercepts are negative 6 and a positive 5. Number 2, y equals x minus 7 times x minus 2. Because that's a positive, it opens up. And notice there's no number here, but 1 is understood to be there. And the x-intercepts are 7 and 2. Number 3, it's a negative 4, so it opens down. And the absolute value of negative 4 is 4 for the vertical stretch, which means when you say vertical stretch here, in case the y values are 4 times what they are in the basic table. And the x-intercepts are x plus 8, got a minus 8, x plus 3, got a minus 3. So that's the intercept form. Notice, the factored form, or the x-intercept form. So when they're factored, we can say that's the factored form. It has to be written as 2 brackets, 2 binomials being multiplied. Change each to factored or x-intercept form. Right now, they're in standard form. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So I have to write them as factored. So that means we will factor the right side. I have a 1 here, so the product is negative 8. Sum is negative 2. So because that's a 1, this is easy to factor. You just go x squared becomes x and x. The factors of 8 to give you 2 are 8 times 1 or 4 times 2. So 8 and 1 will never give you 2, so it has to be a 4 and a 2. Because the product is negative 8, then I'm looking at two factors that differ. 4 and 2 are the answers, but the sum is negative 2. So that means that has to be a negative 4 plus 2. Multiply negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. Add plus or minus 2. So that's the factored form. B, we have to factor this, so the leading term is negative, so we'll take the negative out of the leading term. So negative divided by negative is a positive. Positive divided by negative is a negative. And we have to factor. Notice this is the difference of 2 squares. That's an x squared minus 2 squared. So we go x, 2, 2. Because the product is negative and the sum is 0, there's no x in the middle here. So it has to be a plus 2 minus 2. Again, multiply, negative 2. Add, 0. There's no x, so 0, x is missing. So that's the factorization, and that's the factored form. And let's continue. Change each to factored form, x-intercept form again. We're going to factor it, so we take the negative out, x squared minus 3x minus 10. Notice we have the leading term when we factor should be positive, so we take the negative out. And we have 1x squared, so it's going to work with double bracket. Again, the product is negative 10. Product is the c. Now, product is a times c, but the a is 1, so 1 times negative 10 is negative 10. The sum is in the middle of a negative 3. So that's an x and an x. What are the factors of 10 to give you 3? So you have 10 times 1, or 5 times 2. 10 and 1 will never give you 3, so it has to be a 5 and a 2. The product is negative 10, the sum is negative 3, so it has to be a negative 5 plus 2. Multiply, negative 10, add negative 3. And that's the factored or x-intercept form. And as you can see, the factored form, x-intercepts are 5, opposite, negative 2, opposite. And D, 3x squared plus 9x plus 6, 3 outside of x squared plus 3x plus 2. We have to have the a is 3, so we remove 3 out. 3 is the GCF, so we divide 3 by 3 gives me 1. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And this is a 1x squared, so it's factored. Again, x times x gives you x squared. The factors of 2, product is 2, the sum is 3. Has to be 2 times 1, the only factors of 2. And the product is positive, and the sum is positive, it must be 2 pluses. So that's the factored form. And the x-intercept of this parabola, which is in standard form, the x-intercepts are negative 2, negative 1. And we have some more practice. Practice, remember math, the more you do, the better you get. If you make errors, you correct your errors. Change each to factored or x-intercept form. So y equals, we're going to factor, we have a 1, so we have a double bracket. The product is negative 5. The sum is 4. So the only factors of 5 is 1 and 5. So x squared is x times x. Factors of 5 are 5 and 1. The product is negative, and the sum is positive. So it has to be a plus and a minus. So it has to be a plus 5 minus 1. Multiply 5 by negative 1, negative 5, add 4. And so that's the factored form. And again, the intercepts are negative 5 and 1. And number 2, we want to factor this. We removed the negative. We also removed the 5. 5 is the GCF. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 is x squared. 45 divided by negative 5 is a negative 9. And we have x squared, so that's an x squared minus 3 squared. So that's the difference. That's the difference of 2 squares. So the difference of two squares go x, x, 3, 3 with a plus minus, because the product is negative 9. It has to be a plus and a minus. And again, the intercepts here are negative 3 and 3. And we have to do this one. So we see a 4. 4 is the GCF and all the numbers, so take the 4 out. We get x squared, 6x plus 5. We divide 4 into 4 to get 1. Negative 24 divided by 4 is negative 6. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And we got a 1x squared, so that makes the factor easier. Excuse me. The product is 5. The sum is negative 6. X squared is x and x. Factors of 5 are 5 and 1. And if the product is positive and the sum is negative, it must be two negatives. Multiply, plus 5. Add, minus 6. And that's the factored form, and the intercepts are 5 and 1. Number 4, again, we have a negative 2. Excuse me. Take the negative 2 out. Negative 2 divided by negative 2 is x squared. Negative 14 divided by negative 2 is plus 7x. And a negative 24 divided by negative 2 is a plus 12. And we have a 1x squared, which means it's easy to factor. X squared is x and x. The product is negative 12. Sorry, the product is positive 12. And a sum is 7. So the factors of 12 are 12 times 1, 6 times 2, 3 times 4. But notice the product is positive and the sum is positive, so the two signs have to be pluses. So the factors have to give you a 7. 12 and 1 won't give you 7. 6 and 2 won't give you 7, so it has to be a 3 and a 4. And the x-intercepts are negative 3, negative 4. Now, more practice. Find the equation of each in 3 different forms. So the 3 forms are vertex, which is y equals a outside of x minus h all squared plus k. We also have the standard ax squared plus bx plus c. And we also have, that's a standard form. And we also have the a times x minus s times x minus t. And that's the factored, or the x-intercept form. Now, number 1, vertex is 1, negative 9 through 3, negative 5. Because that's a vertex, I will go to the vertex form. So if this is a vertex, then that's the h and the k, and that's the x and the y. So I'll plug h and k into this form here. So y equals a, x, that's a 1, so it's an x minus 1 because we do the opposite. And that's a negative 9. So that's when you put the h from the ordered pair in, it changes sign, but not the k going in. Now we take the point xy, which is 3, negative 5. So we put a negative 5 in the place of y. We put 3 in the place of x, sub it in. And we have to do the inside of the bracket first by PEMDAS. Then we have to square. Remember, PEMDAS is brackets, parentheses. And then we got to do the exponent, which is a 2 squared is 4, so that's a 4a minus 9. I could leave the a there and move the 9, but let's move the a to the left and the 5 to the right, change signs. 4a equals negative 4. Divide by negative 4, so a becomes 1. So the vertex form, a is 1, so we put a 1. So there's the equation, I'm putting a 1 in right there. And there's the 1, understood. 1 is understood to be right there. So that's the vertex form. Now, which of the other forms do I want to get? Well, let's change it to the standard form by removing the brackets. So y equals x minus 1 squared minus 9. The square, we multiply binomial by a binomial. We'll square this out to get x squared minus x plus 1. So that gives us x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 9. And so I squared it out, foiled it first, outside, inside, last to get these. X times x, x squared, x times negative 1, negative 1 times x, negative 1 times negative 1, 1. I simplify this first to give me a negative x, negative 2x, and then I add the 1 and the negative 9. So there's the what we call the standard form. Okay, so we take the standard form and we factor it. So x squared, two brackets, x squared is x and x. Product is negative 8, so its product is negative 8. The sum is negative 2. So the factors of 8 are 1 times 8 and 4 times 2. So which factors of 8 will give you a 2? 8 and 1 won't, so we got a 4 and a 2. The product is a negative 8. The sum is negative 2. So the larger number has to be negative and the smaller number has to be positive. Multiply, negative 8, add, negative 2, because that's the product and that's the sum. When there's a 1 right here, because the product is normally, if there's a number right here in front of the x squared, you have to multiply this number by negative 8 to get the product. But because it's a 1, 1 times negative 8 is negative 8. So when that's a 1, the product is negative 8. And so that's the Vertex form, that's the standard form, and that's the factored form. And all three of these equations is being represented. Just different ways to write the equation. Find 3 different forms of the parabola. Okay, 3 different forms, but notice this time we have x-intercepts. So if we have x-intercepts, then we can do the intercept form. So y equals a outside of x minus s and x minus t. So if the intercepts are 1 and 5, that means we put the opposite in the equation. So when we do, we have a y-intercept of 10, so that means it's 0, 10. Y-intercept is on the y-axis, that means the x-coordinate is 0. So we take the coordinates at this point, x and y, and sub in to the equation. Y is 10, x is 0. Now we have to do the inside the brackets first by PEMDAS. We get a negative 1, negative 5, 10 equals negative 1 times negative 5 is 5a. So without moving it, just as quick to divide by 5 to get 2, because the 5a is 10. I'm going to say obvious, careful. 5 times 2 is 10. That's a multiplication. So a is 2. So the factored form is a is 2. Notice a is 2. We put 2 in, and we put x minus 1, x minus 5. So a is 2, x minus 1, x minus 5. So notice x-intercepts are 1 and 5, the opposite. Perfect. Now, if we expand that out, we will get, we multiply all that out, then I'll get the standard form. So let's do the brackets first by FOIL. I like to multiply the 2 binomials first and then do the 2 after. So x times x, x squared. X times negative 5, negative 5x. Negative 1 times x is negative x. Negative 1 times negative 5 is 5. And I like to simplify the inside of the bracket first. That's the negative 6 plus 5, negative 5, negative 1, negative 6. Then multiply by 2. And I have the standard form. And the other form we need is the Vertex form. And to get the Vertex, Well, one way to get the vertex form is to do from the standard form, we do x equals negative b over 2a. So that's a, that's b, and that's c. So negative b is the negative of a negative 12 over 2 times 2. 12 over 4, 3. So the x-coordinate of the vertex of this parabola is 3. So if I sub 3, I'm going to write down that equation so you can, I know you can see it, but just to make sure. So I have x is 3, so I'm going to sub 3 in the equation. And I'm going to do my exponent first, which is 9. And I multiply next. I get 18 minus 36 plus 10. And that's a negative 18, and 10 is negative 8. So the vertex of the parabola, that's a negative 8. Vertex of the parabola is 3 and negative 8. So the vertex form is y equals a. We started out with a to be 2. A is 2 in all equations. And the vertex is x. 3 is a negative 3 in the bracket, minus 8. So there's the x-intercept form. There's the standard form. Vertex or x-intercept form, standard form. And this is the factored or x-intercept form. This is the standard form. This is the vertex form. Okay, let's do the final one here. Change y equals 3 times x plus 4x minus 2 to standard and vertex form. It's the same thing I did here. Just repeating it. Same steps I'm going to do here, only I'm going to do one more extra. So we write down the equation. There it is. And we know that the x-intercepts are negative 4 and 2. But we want the standard form, so we'll multiply it all out. FOIL, x times x, x squared, x times negative 2, negative 2x, 4 times x, plus 4x, 4 times negative 2, negative 8. And I simplify that trinomial. Negative 2x plus 4x is 2x minus 8. And I multiply by 3. 3 times x squared. X squared, 3 times 2x, 6x, 3 times negative 8, negative 24. And that's the standard form. Now I want the vertex form. And the fastest way to get the vertex form is to go x equals negative b over 2a. That's the x coordinate, the vertex, when you're looking at the standard form. A is 3, b is 6, c is 24. So it's the negative, b is 6, the negative of 6, and a is 3. So it's negative 6 over 6. So the x-intercept is negative 1. And the x-intercept is negative 1. Now we put a negative 1 into this equation. Right? Or we can put a negative, since we have this equation, we can put a negative 1 in here to get what y is, or we can put a negative 1 in this equation to get what y is, since that equation, which is the factored form, is the same equation but a different form. It represents the same parabola, only different forms. So I can put the 1 in here or the 1 in here, your choice. But I'm just going to pick the 1 going into here. If you pick the, let's go into this one up here. Put a sub of 1 in. So if I put, sub a negative 1, let's see. X is negative 1, so I put the negative 1 in here and here. So that gives me 3, 3, negative 3. That gives me negative 27. So it gives me the vertex is negative 1, negative 27. So the vertex form, remember that's the standard form right there. And the vertex form, A is 3, so the vertex form is A x minus h all squared plus k. So A is 3 from this right here, or A is 3 here, wherever we want to pick A from. And minus becomes a plus when we sub it in, and or we change the sign, and the negative 27 don't change for the k. So there's the vertex form. Now, besides that, I just want to show you another idea. If we have we went from the standard form with negative b over 2a to get the x coordinate, subbed it back in to get the y coordinate. But if you notice also, we have x-intercepts of negative 4 and 2. The x-intercepts are negative 4 and 2. So if you think about it, just think about this. The x-intercepts are negative 4 and 2. So the parabola is cutting through these two x-intercepts of negative 4 and 2. But halfway in between, so if you take a negative 4 and add on 2, if you get the middle, if you add them up, you get negative 2 over 2, you get a negative 1. So halfway is the x-coordinate of the vertex. So if you take negative 4 and 2, halfway that's 6 units, and there's 3 in the middle. So there's the x-coordinate of the vertex right there. Notice we did it this way with negative b over 2a. This way. But also, if you know the x-intercepts, and if you get the average, or you add them up and divide by 2, you get the middle, you get a negative 1. Then you can take the negative 1 using this and sub it into the equation and get what the y is, which is 27. So once you get that done, which you have down here, you can sub it into the equation to get what the y is, and then you get the vertex form. So again, you can get the x-coordinate of vertex this way, and then get the y value to get the vertex form, or you can get this way. But notice again, I just wanted to use another method. Because you have the x-intercept form, then you automatically, if you think about it, have the x-coordinate of the vertex. Then you sub it back into the equation, and you get your y. So you get if you do it this way first, you get the vertex form, and then you change your vertex form to standard. So several ways to do it, just trying to show you different options. And think about it, and you'll see. So, but notice, all 3 of these forms are representing the same parabola. And that brings us to the end. If you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. And that's the content that's on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.